when keto first started, it was very, very therapeutic, high fat. And I know that we both agree more on healing with high fat, and that's a good lever to use. But with all this keto light coming in with the you don't need fat to be on a ketogenic diet as long as you lower your carbs, then you'll still be in a state of ketosis. How much do you value new science versus these are just trends and then I'll just kind of go away? Like, what are your thoughts on, okay, maybe this is new science that I need to adhere to and open up to, or this is just a trend that I know I have to just let it pass and then I'll just keep going?
I'm trying to figure out what is causing a lot of this, and I think there are so many businesses, so many scientists, so many researchers, so many paid parties and organizations that are benefiting from the popularity of keto, and they know that there's still a massive demographic that wants to adhere to a ketogenic diet. So trying to mold the ketogenic diet to fit their narrative. And science, like I'm a huge advocate for science. Science is amazing. What we've been able to accomplish through science is just it's mind boggling. But at the same time, with science, I feel like a lot of people have lost the ability to self experiment and then self diagnose and have some sense of self awareness to actually ask themselves, okay, how do I feel with these macro ratios? And instead, they'll look to their favorite influencer who can cherry pick any scientific study to support their argument. And you see this all day long within the keto low carb space. And it's frustrating because I feel like it dilutes so many good things that are out there. And you see this a lot right now, like you're saying, specifically with the protein argument. And, you can absolutely lose weight with a high protein, low fat approach. You can absolutely lose weight with a high carb approach. You can lose weight with a high fat ketogenic approach. So it doesn't make sense to me why you would want to bastardize what keto is to make it fit a different narrative. Let it be what it is. And I mean, the other day I had somebody send me macros that their keto coach prescribed them. And it was like 300 grams of protein, 50 grams of carbs, and 15 grams of fat. And that's just not ketogenic. I don't care what universe you're from. That's not a ketogenic diet. And
Wow.
yes, your body can learn to use its stored fat as fuel. Absolutely. But you're gonna optimize ketone production and efficiency in using those ketones if you have a pretty significant degree of dietary fat coming in as well. It makes no sense why you'd want to shunt that completely, because then it's just going to become an inefficient process. And protein is an amazing macronutrient, but it's not a great substrate for energy. It's a great building block and source for amino acids, but your energy is going to come from either carbs or fat. So if you're not eating carbs and you're not eating fat and your body's not efficient at using your stored fat, then you're not going to have energy. You're not going to feel great, and it's not going to be sustainable. So it's just a race to the bottom, which I don't want to play.
Yeah, and I mean I'm fully on the same page with you. The whole keto movement with the high protein is obviously coming into the meat-based space. And the concern I have is that I think it's really hard to do, especially if you're not eating any bit of carbs. So you don't have fiber and other veggies that bloat you to bring in satiety. And so if you're just eating lean meats of shrimps and chicken and eating that most days, you're probably going to feel ravenous all the time and not feel well. And so I have some clients that are saying, look, I'm willing to do the hormonal healing, but I want to lose weight at this point too. So then instead of doing extended fasting, I said, okay, why don't you try protein sparing modified fast or very high protein and very minimal fat for just like a day. And even the one day is really hard for them because they're so used to the higher fat. And so when they start eating really lean proteins, they just feel hungry all day. Their mood starts getting affected and automatically it's just showing. It's worrisome to me that there's a lot of advocates that are saying eat very lean protein, maybe even 55% fat, maybe 60% fat. But for women, especially in the healing phase of the hormonal imbalances, to eat that lean on a meat based diet. And then instead of saying, maybe I need to change the levers, they'll say, this diet doesn't work. And that is my
Yeah.
concern when you have a very healing diet in front of you.
Yeah, it's very frustrating for me to see because they're like the protein sparing modified fast as an example. I'm not a huge fan of that because the way it's been presented by so many influencers out there is that you do 600 or less calories on that day. It's all coming from very lean protein sources, but then they'll have you return to the normal intake, which is still an incredibly low amount. So you're just chronically underfed, and then you're having a day which you're even more steeply underfed, and it's not coming from dietary fat. So I've had several clients that have come from that. I've had several clients that have competed with protocols like that, and they'll come to me, and their testosterone will be totally shot if they're a male. I mean, not and with that you lose muscle. There's so many downstream negative effects that come from totally tanking your hormones, and so much of that can be mitigated with just a well formulated ketogenic diet with ample dietary fat. So it's hard for me to see that unfold the way it has, because there's a great dietary protocol in front of these people, and they're throwing it away because the popular narrative has been, if you have any fat to lose, you don't need to consume any dietary fat. And that just couldn't be farther from the truth.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I know a lot of people have been really on this like kick for egg whites to make, especially in the carnivore space. So I won't say the keto space because there's a lot of veggies and stuff that you can add into the keto diet. But for a carnivorous diet, they'll use, I think, egg whites to make bread. But there's no nutrition in the egg whites, right? It's like mostly just protein, maybe a little drop of magnesium, and that's it. The nutrient density is in the egg yolks. And so all you're
Mhm.
doing is getting protein. And so it's like as a side, that's fine. But if you're eating that as your part of your main meal to account for the protein, well, when we talk about protein grams, it's including all the nutrients from meats, right? And so that's a concern for me. But yeah, it's just interesting how this all unfolds. So,
Yeah.
given, go ahead.
No, I totally. And one of their big arguments is that protein is just so much more satiating than fat. But it's not. I mean, protein is great. There's more volume in equal grams of or equal calories between protein and fat. However, in the context of a deficit, you're probably going to be hungry regardless of the macronutrient distribution because you're in a deficit. But if you're not getting ample, I mean, you have to have a little bit of protein and a little bit of fat together. Like 500 calories of pure protein is not going to be satiating. 500 calories of pure fat is not going to be satiating. You need to have a blend there. And these people that are doing just incredibly high protein at the expense of zero fat, it's just not going to be satiating. I feel like if you were to look at it through like the lens of a 80-20 analysis, for instance, what's going to be 20% of your effort and yield 80% of your return if people just simply ate a 1-to-1 ratio of protein to fat, and it was all coming from single ingredient whole food quality sources. That's going to fix almost everybody's problems up to a point, and then they can kind of tweak and finesse from there.